This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. I'm a knitting teacher, and this is my brand new Tru-Knit Circular Sock Machine. I'm very happy with mine, and I just posted a very positive review. I recommend it as a reliable, smooth, quiet, feature-laden, and quality-built CSM. Many CSM knitters start after hand knitting socks, or perhaps were not a knitter at all, and they may not have anyone nearby to teach them the machine. There are a lot of online resources, and I've linked some of my favorites in the description box below. I'm also filming a few quick start lessons for newbies. If you aren't sure how to start, or the machine is frustratingly unfamiliar to you, these lessons are for you. I hope to give you a great start and some early confidence using your CSM. In this lesson, I'm going to cast on by hanging a bonnet. I'm going to hang the weights, and I'm going to begin knitting a tube. Now, this is the bonnet. It came with a machine, and its purpose is to hang in the middle of the machine and hold some weights. Sock machines use a lot of weight to knit. They gave you a pick in the kit. It's just a pointy tool. A dental pick would work. This is a really nice pick that they gave me in my kit. Now what you do is you take these little loops in between the bumps on the bonnet and you hang them on every other needle. So I hung one and skipped one. I've installed needles all the way around my cylinder. As I hang these, I make sure that the latch is open. These needles have a little latch that opens and closes, and I want them open to start. Now I'll get my bonnet hung on part way around, and I can do that on all these needles that are up. But before I can hang it on the needles that are down, I'm going to have to knit around a little ways. I'll be right back. Before I do anything else, after hanging about half my bonnet, I have to go around with my fingertip and just make sure that the latches are open. If a latch is closed, I'll use either my fingernail or this tool and just open it. If the latch is closed, the new yarn won't knit through the loop. Here is the sock knitting machine needle. It has this bump here called the needle butt, and then here is the latch end. It's got a hook and a little metal bar that flips back and forth. That's the closed latch, which is smooth and pulls a loop through. And when it's open, it's hooked and it can grab the yarn. And we need these to grab the yarn. Now, I need to thread the machine. I'm going to put waste yarn in my machine. Now, these machines use really thin yarn. Look how small that yarn is compared to my fingertip. And this is a cone of yarn. Cones are really nice for knitting with these machines because the yarn flows smoothly off the top of the cone. I'm going to put the cone on the floor behind the machine, and then I'm going to put it in this tension mast right here. This stick is the mast, and this is the upper feeder. There's a loop over here where I can put yarn, and my finger's in the loop, and there's a loop here where I can put yarn, but you don't feed two colors at once. Now I'm putting my yarn on the right on the floor because I'm going to go in through this right loop, and it's got a little slot, so it's very easy to just pop the yarn right through that little slot. Then I'm going to go around this post. There's a slot here that's vertical. I'm going to go in the vertical slot. There's a slot here that's horizontal, so I go there. And then there's a bar here. I go over the bar, then under this next thing, and I just pull this to the left into the loop. So you see that was just up and to the left. It goes right in the loop. And then I have a hole here. I'm just going to put the yarn through that hole. Now we have a thing called the heel spring. It's a piece of wire up here. And I want to put the heel spring on. I want to show you how. You just put your finger under here and lift this up a little, and you just put this yarn into that little hook part of the heel spring, and it pulls up the yarn all the time. So a lot of times in your manual it'll say to have the heel spring on. So this is the heel spring on, and this is the heel spring off. And by and large, you're going to do your knitting with the heel spring on. So I'll put it on, but if I just let go, it'll unthread. So I have to pull down a little bit of yarn so it doesn't unthread. Now let's go back and get the rest of the bonnet on the machine. I need to thread the machine. This yarn feeder right here is called the Silver Bullet, which I think is a really cool name. And I'm going to thread my yarn in this Silver Bullet. It's really quick and easy. There's a little hole here the yarn goes through, but there's a split right there, so it's easy to get it in there. And then there's a split down the top, so it's easy to pop it in there. And then I'm just going to lay it in front of the stitches, but I want to hold it down with my finger. And I want to just get that first stitch started. And then, once the first stitch is started, the heel spring can be on, and I can add weights. What I'm going to do instead of adding weights is I'm going to finish this, so I'm going to grab this bonnet. I'm just putting my hand right around it, giving it the grab and the tug, and I'm going to knit, I don't know, around to about here. And there you go. Now it's easy for me to put the rest of these on because all the needles are up. I'll take this little loop and put it in the middle, and then I'll get my pick again and get the rest of these hung on needles. Again, I'm making sure that the latches on the needles are open. And with just a little practice, having your latches be open will be habitual for you. It'll be easy. Let's get this one here. And let me see. This one's already hung, and that one's already hung, so I'm good. Now it's time to put the weights on. Let me show you how to do that. I put my camera down near the floor so you could see how to install the weights. You have the buckle, which looks like a buckle, and then you have the weight stack. It's a beautifully finished stack. One of the things I like about the Tru-Knit weights is that you have to slide them up to get them off. They'll come off the skinny part of the post, but when you slide them on, they are not going to fall off on your foot. They're very secure. Now to install the buckle, we're going to turn the buckle so that the teeth are down. Teeth down, okay? And the bracket is in the back. We're going to push this bonnet into the teeth, pull it up, flip it over, and bring it down like that. Then we hang the weights on. We put the hook in the hole. The weights are very secure, and there is about 2 pounds of weight on our bonnet. Now we're ready to continue knitting. When you first use your CSM, I think you get a huge kick out of how fast you knit. It seems like every second I get all the way around, and my tube gets longer and longer. Now, normally when we're making socks, we start with waste yarn. The idea is we're going to throw this yarn away. It's a stitch holder. It's a way to cast on with our good yarn. So I'm going to grab some good sock yarn on a cone, and I'm going to load it in the machine. Your socks will be about as good as your sock yarn. This is some quality sock yarn from the Tru-Knit company. There are lots of companies that make good sock yarn. This is a brand called Active, and it is 75% superwash wool, 25% nylon, and that's my favorite combination for socks. It's already on a cone, so you don't have to rewind this one. I've got a really pretty color here, but I'm being careful to use a color that is quite different from my waste yarn. I need to be able to tell the difference between the color of my sock yarn, or in this case the colors, and my waste yarn. I'm going to go ahead and thread this. Now I'm going to bring my carriage around to the 3/4 point. Now in your Tru-Knit manual it refers to point A, which is the back center of the machine, point B, which has a hot pink mark on it, point C, which is center front of the machine, and point D on the right hand side, which also has a hot pink mark. And you usually start over here, not always, at point D, and the first needle on the machine is this one that I'm hooking with my tool. It is the needle behind that pink mark. The sock machines go counterclockwise most of the time, kind of like NASCAR or dancing. They go this way. So that's needle number 1 back there, and that's going to be my first needle in the round. And I'm just going to crank until needle number 1 starts to come down and close. I'm going to stop right there. Then I'm going to cut the yarn. I'll leave a little tail, and I'm going to bring the yarn using my hook. Here's needle number 1. I'm just going to hook that yarn and bring it right into the center of the machine. Everything's harder when you're on camera. Got it. Okay, so the yarn is now in the center of the cylinder and it's threaded into needle 1. Now I'm going to thread the new yarn. Here's that new yarn threaded above, and I'm going to put it in the silver bullet. Click, click, quick and easy. I'm going to bring it all the way in front of needle 1, and then I'm going to bring it to the inside. Now, one of my old idiosyncratic quirks is I like to use a clothespin hanging on the end of yarn to just hold it down, and then my hands are both free. And this yarn is actually in the hook of needle 1. So I have 2 yarns in the hook of needle 1, but that's okay, because later on when I remove the waste yarn, I'm going to take that out. There is a row counter with the Tru-Knit. It's electronic, and you turn it off and on with the left hand button. And with the right hand button, you could take it to 0. So mine is on 0. And I'm going to start knitting a few rows and counting the rows with the row counter. So I'll put it right here so you can see it. And here I go. And you will very quickly see that the yarn is feeding just fine and you don't need the clothespin anymore. That's just one of my little things I like to do to keep my hands free. So that's our first lesson. We've hung the bonnet, cast on, hung the buckle, hung the weights, and learned to thread the upper tension. And we're off and knitting. Come back for the next lesson, and we will actually knit a hem.